I was handcuffed on my own lawn knees and the grass police guns trained on me while my racist HOA president stood there smirking like she had won. She thought her lies had buried me, that she'd stolen my father's truck and destroyed my dignity in one move. What she didn't know was that she had just made the biggest mistake of her life because I'm the chief of police, and her world was about to collapse. It all started on a quiet Saturday, the kind of weekend afternoon you wait for all week. The sun was warm, the sky clear, and I was outside polishing my pride and joy, a midnight blue '72 Ford F-100 restored down to the last bolt. I call her Blue. She isn't just a truck to me. She's the last piece of my father I have left. My dad was a mechanic, an honest man with grease under his fingernails and wisdom in his voice. We started rebuilding that truck together before he passed. Every coat of paint, every spark plug, every stitch in the seat is part of him. So when I'm working on Blue, I'm with him again. That day, I noticed a lanky kid, maybe 16, blonde hair smirk plastered on his face. Before I could blink, he slipped into my truck like it was his playground, gripping the wheel and making vroom vroom noises. I was walking over ready to politely kick him out when his mother arrived, and not just any mother. Carol Simmons, president of the HOA, the queen of Blossom Court. She stormed across my lawn in a neon green tracksuit like some radioactive lizard sunglasses perched on her head, scowl locked in place. And then she opened her mouth. "You people are used to taking what doesn't belong to you. That truck belongs to my son now. Take your dirty hands off it." For a second I froze, microfiber cloth still in my hand. The words were so sharp, so openly racist, it stunned me. She wasn't posturing, she was deadly serious. Her kid Kevin looked at me like I was the trespasser. He shouted, "Yeah, he's stealing our car." The peaceful afternoon shattered. I stayed calm, years of training in de-escalation, but inside my blood was boiling. I told her firm and low, "Get your son out of my truck and both of you off my property." She laughed in my face. "Your truck cute. I'm HOA president. That rust bucket violates community standards. It's being impounded, consider it a birthday gift to my son." The audacity almost knocked me over. I told her exactly what the bylaws said, quoting the section about abandoned vehicles. My truck was pristine, registered and running. She looked startled for a moment, then doubled down, voice shrieking, "I make the rules here. Sign the title over, or I'll have it towed, slap you with fines, and call the police to report a car thief." That's when I realized this wasn't just about HOA power. She was trying to weaponize the system itself. And then she did the unthinkable. Carol called 911, turned on the fake tears, and said, "Please hurry. There's a big black man, he's armed, he's screaming at us. My son is just a boy. We're terrified." She was 20 feet from me. I hadn't moved an inch, but she painted me as a violent carjacker. The sirens came fast. Red and blue lights tore through the neighborhood. In seconds, I was on my knees, hands up, cuffed on my own lawn. Carol and Kevin stood by smug, feeding their lies to the officers. For a brief, gut-wrenching moment, I wondered if this was it. Not because of anything I did, but because of her hate and her lies. Then came the twist. One sergeant asked for my ID. I told him back pocket. He pulled out my wallet, flipped it open, and froze. His face went pale. The young officer beside him stammered, "Sarge, he's the chief." Silence hung heavy. I looked straight at the sergeant. "Perhaps you can explain why I'm in handcuffs on my own property, and then ask that woman why she filed a false report against her new boss. You could have heard a pin drop." Carol's smirk cracked. When she was marched over to me still trying to play queen, I told her flatly who I was and what she'd done: lies, racial harassment, attempted theft, endangering officers with false claims of a gun. The shock on her face was priceless. But instead of backing down, she regrouped and launched her next attack. A week later, a certified letter landed on my doorstep, $10,000 in HOA fines. Violations that were pure fiction, claiming I ran a repair business from home, that my immaculate truck was derelict, that the police incident she caused had lowered community prestige. It was war, and she wasn't stopping. I'll admit something. For a while I thought about quitting, selling the house, walking away. I looked at my wife, my son, and wondered if keeping Blue was worth the constant harassment. I felt powerless, humiliated. That truck, my father's memory, was being twisted into a weapon against me. For the first time in years, I doubted myself. But then my lawyer, Emily Parker, stepped in. Sharp as a blade, she told me, "They handed us a bazooka. Time to fire." Together, we started digging. We forced the HOA to hand over records. I knocked on doors, listened to neighbors. Story after story poured out absurd fines and intimidation threats. And then the smoking gun, a landscaping company called Prestige Property Management. Overpriced, sloppy, and secretly owned by Carol's husband, Frank. I compared signatures, traced payments. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in HOA dues had been funneled into their personal accounts. Carol wasn't just a racist bully. She and Frank were crooks running a fraudulent empire behind the HOA. The night of the emergency HOA meeting, the clubhouse was packed. I stood in front, laid out the contracts, the forged signatures, the inflated budgets. Neighbors who once whispered about me being a problem were staring at Carol with pure betrayal. The vote was unanimous. Carol and her cronies were removed on the spot. Her kingdom crumbled in minutes. But she wasn't finished. A week later, Kevin cornered my teenage son at school, spitting racial slurs, shoving him into lockers, blaming him for ruining their family. When Kevin got suspended, Carol doubled down, accusing my son of being the aggressor. She filed a police report against him for assault retaliation, pure and simple. That was her final mistake. Filing a false report while out on bail is a felony. Within 24 hours, detectives were at her door. She was arrested again, this time without the chance of release. Frank was picked up the same day for embezzlement and wire fraud. Their son cried as his parents were hauled away in cuffs. The HOA board was gone. Their house seized, their reputation turned to ash. Standing on my lawn, looking at the spot where I'd once been handcuffed, I realized something. Carol thought she could use rules, lies, and hate to strip me of my dignity, my father's legacy, my home. But all she really did was expose herself. She tried to play queen of a suburban kingdom, but in the end, justice ripped the crown right off her head. Some people inherit money, others inherit power. What I inherited from my father was integrity, and in the end, that's what destroyed them. Never underestimate the cost of arrogance.